Hello, my name is Daniel Repasy, and I will be talking about my research project, which was connections from the Baroque period to Mozart's compositions. Topic of interest. The biggest part of my research revolved around the connections in melodic harmony and tendencies in the phrasing of Mozart's D minor fantasy to earlier composition styles of the Baroque period. The idea sparked my interest in trying to understand the influence that might have played a role into the composition styles that resonated in Mozart's work, and if there was a major connection in the role of melodic harmonies within the Baroque period that might have taken part in influencing Mozart's compositions. Mozart's D minor fantasy. Mozart's D minor fantasy was left unfinished at the time of his death and was later reconstructed by professionals that studied his work. We will never know how Mozart's true intentions with the end of the piece, and this was a huge influence on why I chose to research the connections of previous musical tendencies from the Baroque period to maybe come to conclusions to see if there was any influence that might have better represent how Mozart thought musically. There are a few ideas from this piece that I wanted to touch on, such as the reoccurring themes that play a role, as well as the intricate presto sections, which give the song a very dreamlike feel to it, as well as the lyricism in his writings that act as a form of voicings over the melody of the song. The Baroque period. During the Baroque period, there were many forms of compositions that could be very closely related to Mozart's tone in his writings, as well as the use of sonatas, which were made of multiple, typically more complex compositions. A book that I found when looking through the XJSU library is Compositional Theory in 18th Century by Joel Lester, which gave me a deeper look into the different themes that became more prevalent throughout the Baroque period, such as longer melodic voicings and the use of decorative notes such as trills and the use of improvisation. As music from before had mainly been written for the church, and less music was geared towards being creatively written. Instruments such as the viola and the harpsichord became very popular during this time. And fun fact, Mozart's dad was a famous violinist / string player, and that played a major role in influencing of Mozart's work. And violas and string instruments were very popular at that time. And here's a little picture of people playing some stringed instruments, and as well as the harpsichord, which is related to the piano. Connections between Mozart and the Baroque music. During the Baroque period, the immersion of sonatas became very popular, in which were elongated pieces, usually instrumental, or an instrument would have several phrases or movements, usually being played in a solo. Mozart was born near the end of the Baroque period and grew into popularity during the beginning of the classical era. There was major connections in his compositional style that can easily relate to the Baroque period, such as ornamentation of his pieces, as he would create these very intricate melodies that showed off his talents and skills, as well as the use of counterpoints, the act of combining two or more melodic lines into one melody, which was very popular in the Baroque period. Connections to music history. I wanted to connect this piece to the ideas of the Middle Ages and connect Mozart to more choral pieces, even connecting it with ideas of the Renaissance, but it came easier to construct the ideas relating around the Baroque period with the popularity in sonatas, mainly due to the fact that it was closer to the classical era in which Mozart lived and was the most prominent in his career, with connections to polyphonic harmony and the use of voicings from the Middle Ages as well. The Baroque had a more common use of major and minor scales, which became a major role into the compositions of the classical era, as well as Mozart's ability to create. A good example of polyphonic harmony is a book written by McMullen named Formulas of Chanson of Grace Brule. a comparative study of the process of composition and transmission in lyrics and melodies. This book was able to give me a lot of insight on lyrical and melodic compositions within the Middle Ages, yet failed to surpass the works of Gase Brule, in which I found it difficult to connect to the ideas of the Baroque period. But it did give me more insight on different styles within the periods. Complications when conducting my research. Mozart is dead, and we cannot specifically ask him for his thoughts on his music or key factors that distinctly had a cause and effect pattern in his writing. There was not a lot of books or resources that directly connected Mozart with the Middle Ages or the Renaissance period, and which was why I gave up on the idea of connecting it to those eras and more relating it to ideas of the Baroque period. There was also not a lot of books on the connections of Mozart to the Baroque period, so I had to draw at strings and kind of come to conclusions without having it set in stone. Mozart's D minor fantasy was left unfinished at the time of his death, so we can only speculate how he intended to finish the piece. Connection. Oh, I'm back. Sorry. And finally, my bibliography. This is the two books that I quoted and that I used within my writing. I hope you enjoyed. I'm a little bit over 5 minutes, but have a great day.